Hare Krishna, Namaste, Chapter 18, which is entitled as Sannyasa Yoga. Sloka 12, Part 2. Aniṣṭam miśraṁ ca tri-vidhaṁ karmaṇaḥ phalam bhavaty atyāgināṁ pretya natu sannyāsināṁ kvacit. For one who is not renounced the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrue after death, but those who are in the renounced order of life have no such result to suffer or enjoy. We have been trying to address and understand the two questions that have been raised. Number one, just by thinking, I don't want the result, it is not true that one will not get the result. When you sow a seed, you will get the grain. The second objection is, even if one does sin by mistake unknowingly, one will suffer for it. Like how a seed is dropped on the ground by negligence will still sprout. In the previous session, we saw that how a karma, when it's performed, can give different results based on the aspirants. A simple example is, I can work, but I can decide not to get paid. Similarly, I can do agnihotra or any other karmas, but still desire not to get the result. Well, why even you do such act where you are not interested in result? Answer is, I do because it is said in the Shastra, and by doing that the Lord is pleased, and it is my kartavyam, it is my duty as human to follow the scripture to please the Lord. So, not that one is not expecting any result. The result that a mumukshu, a person who is in the path of liberation, aspiring for is to please the Lord. The Lord who is pleased gives such a person liberation. Let's take an example. If a lime is sold to the king, it will fetch a better price than when sold to somebody on the street. Whereas, if the same lime is given to the king as an offering to please him, he may favor us with much more better benefits. Similarly, when karma is undertaken just aiming to please Krishna, it yields liberation itself. Like how a healthy seed is sown in fertile soil, it sprouts by the grace of Krishna. But there is a difference with this example. The seed which is sown in a fertile soil has its limitation. According to its capacity, it cannot yield whatever the person sowing is desiring for. I cannot expect a mango fruit from the rose seed that I sowed. Karma is entirely different, meaning the activities is entirely different. It has varied powers and its results will be in accordance with the desire of the doer. That means I can do agnihotra and not necessarily I have to desire for heaven, but my desire could be to please the Lord. So this addresses the first question, the question that when we perform a karma, one must get the phalam. The answer is not necessary. One can alter the result. The example of seed is not the same for the karma that we perform. Now let's move on to the second objection. That is, we earlier mentioned that the sins performed by the mumukshus, the unknown sins that performed by the mumukshus, the people who are in the path of bhakti, will not yield reaction. So the opponent said, well, that cannot be the case, and he justifies his objection with the example of seed again. By dropping the seed on the ground by mistake, it is still going to sprout. By doing a sin by mistake, unknowingly, still one has to suffer. So here in the sloka, the term aniṣṭam is used. It refers to the results of improper action done unintentionally, unknowingly. If a sinful act is done knowingly, its consequences has got to be suffered, or else it has to be remediated through some prayachitta, through some atonement process that mentioned in the scripture. The argument that just like the seed dropped on the ground through negligence will grow into a plant, the sin committed unknowingly will also yield the result is not a proper understanding. We should know who gives the result. It is Krishna who alone bestows the fruits of all the actions. And that Supreme Lord has a special compassion for his devotees, and hence he tolerates towards the sins committed unknowingly. His anger is never directed towards his devotees. It is said in the scriptures that like the water on a lotus leaf does not stick on it, the sin committed by a devotee through carelessness does not impact him. In other words, yes, it is true for those who have not taken shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna that irrespective of knowingly or unknowingly, if one commits sin, they must suffer. That's a main rule. But the exception is for those who are devoted and surrendered soul. Those sins which are committed due to carelessness, due to inattentiveness, unknowingly, will be forgiven, tolerated by the Lord out of His compassion towards His devotees. Therefore, the seed getting dropped on the ground by mistake is not the same case when it comes to devotees and the Lord's compassion. So that covers the two response to the two objections that's been raised by the Purva Pakshi. Now one important thing to see here is that Krishna here again shows that Tyaga and Sannyasa are synonymous. They are not different, they are one and the same. The term pretya, which literally means after death, that is, when a person renounces inappropriately, that is incorrect renunciation, that person after death receives three possible results: aniṣṭam, iṣṭaṁ, miśraṁ. Either suffers in the form of hell, or in the Swarga, or suffers in human birth. Another interpretation for this term pretya is after the karma is accomplished. There are yagas like aiming for produce rain, which needs to result in the same lifetime, not after death. What is the use of a person performing a yaga to get rain, but the result is going to be obtained only after this person leaves the body? So the point is, it includes karmas which can yield result even in this lifetime or in his afterlife. So both could be possible based on what has been performed and what has been desired. Now it opens up a bigger discussion. Just by thinking I am not the doer, will that also include the other two tyaga, that mamata tyaga and phalatyaga? Next question, if I am not karta, doer, then whom does the phalam, the result, belongs to? Because the result is going to come anyway. These are the questions we are going to see in our next session, which further going to create more questions like who is the doer? If you say it is Krishna who is the ultimate doer, then why I need to suffer? The phalam, the fruit, belongs to him. All this will be addressed in our following session. Namaste. Hare Krishna.